I want to talk to you about fear, because often people just have this feeling and they label it as fear. It could have lots of different names, but they allow it to take over their actions. And I think the first thing to do is to really understand in this crisis is, what is your fear? What actually is it? I want you to grab a piece of paper and just start writing down, what is the real fear? Just by doing that exercise, it already takes some of the fear away, because your mind will keep going around with loops. You won't be able to come to any conclusions about it just by letting it run in your mind. So you need to put it down on a piece of paper and really understand, so what is this thing that I'm really feeling? Once you have it on paper, you see, then you can start dealing with it. Okay, so that's the first step. What would you do?
So yeah, I would pretty much look at the real emotions that are going on with the fear as well. So if you're writing down the fear, it is, you know, whereabouts in your life is that kind of showing up for? Is it in the area of finances? Is it to do with your family? Is it to do with the illness? You know, will you think are you healthy enough? You know, do you feel you're going to get through it? What are the things that are really coming up? And also sort of start looking at a little bit, where have they shown up before? You know, so really kind of sitting down and analysing what are you really feeling, but from emotions. I think it really helps as well to kind of see where that trigger point was from.
I think it's important to understand that some fears are there, your mind conjures them up in order to make sure you don't jump off a high building, or you don't, you know, jump into the sea. I mean, some fears are really there, but the majority of them, though, as Mark Twain said, you know, I have had thousands of problems in my life, none of which ever happened. So your mind's job is actually to be on the lookout for danger. And as you can imagine right now, it's having a field day, you know, with the coronavirus and then therefore the stock market, etc. But just talking about the finances, once you start writing that down, you say, well, so what is your fear? Well, if you haven't sold a position, you haven't really lost money. You've got a paper loss. And if you use our value cost averaging strategy and you make sure that you've only bought into things that can't go to zero, you should actually be in a really strong position right now, because of course what you've done is you've lowered your average price. So write that down, and then you'll see that that feeling of fear actually starts subsiding.
Yeah, then it's a great tip, because when you do write it down, you can really look at, okay, what are the solutions around this? It might also be, when you start writing that down, you actually realize that actually that fear isn't even mine. Where did I get that from? Oh, was that from the newspaper that I read the other day? Was that because my friend said something the other day? I know people have said things to me over the last few days, and I've kind of gone, that's interesting. Okay, I take it on board. I don't, you know, I take the information on board, but I make it, is it really my reality? Is it what I believe? Is that what my beliefs are? Because it's very easy in this time when emotions are high that we take on other people's fears. So make sure that it actually is your fear and not somebody else's that you've just picked up for the day. You know, it's really important.
And start reframing it, start using different words. So I'm going to give you several examples. So let's say financial meltdown. How about this one? Overextended. So in other words, a financial meltdown, but if it's overextended, then maybe it's overdone, and now's a great opportunity to get in. Kind of very similar, right? But different words have different meanings. So when you're writing this down, start with what's called reframing that word and say, well, what else could it mean? For example, could this mean a crisis, or could it mean an opportunity? Notice how when I say those two words, crisis, opportunity, notice how you feel different things. Okay, could this meltdown actually be an opportunity right now? That gives it a totally different meaning suddenly, doesn't it? And allows you to get away from inaction and paralysis to action. Because there's no way that normally an average person, not saying that you're average, but the average person, when they're in fear, that they can actually make good decisions. Fear is not a good place to make a decision from.
And you know, by writing it down, looking at it, and actually taking some time to do that, you'll actually find you're incredibly resourceful on your own. When you take the emotions out and you put it on a piece of paper, you can really go, actually, if it is my finances, what do we really need to live off right now? You know, do we have some savings? Do we really need to do that right now? Can we put that on hold? You know, it really gets you to be quite resourceful in that moment, and it's actually you can see the great in everything. If you're looking, you can actually go, actually, this is a great way for me to do some cost creeping right now. And so we look at our budgeting and things like that. If you're looking at your health, what an amazing time while you're at home to be looking after your health, and going, okay, well, oh wow, I can go for a walk. I had somebody who phoned me up today and said, that's the first time in 25 years I've done some exercise, and they felt great about it. Now, how cool is that something like this, where you're looking for an opportunity, could absolutely shift your life to another place? So you are incredibly resourceful when you take the emotions out. So getting it down on paper is super helpful.
One of the things that you can actually do when we said that when you're in the midst of a feeling like fear, it's very difficult because you're paralyzed to move into any positive action. So if for whatever reason, you've written it down and you've tried to reframe it and that still isn't working, that's fine, because there's lots of other techniques, okay? So for example, I want you to imagine whatever this fear might be. It might be that you think that you're going to catch it, or your family's going to catch it and they're going to die, or it might be that your business is going to go down, or it might be that your relationships are going to suffer, or you'll stay at home and you'll get unhealthy, and everybody's beliefs sound ridiculous to everybody else, so don't judge. Everybody has millions of different beliefs that only make sense to them. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to just imagine this particular image of whatever fear that you have about what's about to happen. Okay, you got it? Okay, so here's what I want you to do. I want you just to close your eyes for a moment. Okay, good. Now keep them closed. And what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to think about making that image as small as you can in your mind. Okay, so shrink it all the way down like a giant shrinking. Ooh, until it's as small as you can. It's a tiny little thing like that right now. And I want you to make sure that it suddenly turns with the click of my finger black and white. So it's totally black and white now, insignificant. And I want you to now push it, this image, to the corner of your mind so that it almost drops off. In fact, it probably has dropped off. Okay, so go ahead and open your eyes now. So what feelings does that image now have for you? And what should have happened by making it smaller, by making it black and white, by pushing it away, is that the feeling should have subsided by now, and that you're in a position to at least take the next step, which is to come from inaction now to action. In other words, if you were paralyzed by this before, you shouldn't be paralyzed by it anymore. Anything you'd like to add to that?
I think that's an awesome exercise to do, and do it a couple of times if once isn't enough. Do it on all the different things that you might have going on at the moment, because the more you do it, the more your mind will condition it. In the same way, you can use things like affirmations to also help you unlodge that fear. So if you figure out what that thing is that's holding you back, let's say, I feel unhealthy, I might catch it. You want to do the opposite to that and really look at, anytime you feel that fear, is just to keep saying that word to yourself as well. That's often really, really helps as well. So, but yeah, do it again and again and again. If you still feel that fear coming up, do it again. Use it as a resource to do it as many times as you want.
So you can do it again and again and again now, or if later on it comes up again, just don't panic, because we just told you it probably will come up again, and if it does, then you just go through the exercise again, make it really small. If there's any noises, by the way, that you hear around it, they're imaginary, but it doesn't matter. It's all imaginary, it's all in your mind, right? If you wouldn't know that the coronavirus was happening right now, you just get on with your life, wouldn't you? Everything is imaginary right now. So that's the whole point. So what we're doing in our mind is we're shrinking it, we're getting rid of the noise, we're muting it, making it black and white, shoving it into the corner so it becomes extremely insignificant. You can use this in all areas of your life. If somebody annoys you in the future, it could be that one client that shouts the most but doesn't make up any of your revenue. That's the kind of things that you can do. So if this does come up again during the day, don't sweat it. Just say, aha, okay, I'm going to do it again, shove it to the side. But the idea is to make sure that you're in a position to take good decisions, make good commitments right now about those areas of your life, and you can't do it if you're paralyzed by these emotions. Anything else?
No, that's great.
I hope you enjoyed this video and that it can either help you or your family or maybe your friends or your tribe in order to overcome these tough times. Now, they're tough in our minds, so that we're going to be working a lot with our mindset and psychology, and we're going to be sending you a minimum of one of these tricks, techniques and tips that you can work on a daily basis. And what we're looking to do is to make sure that at the end of this crisis, you not only survive it, but you thrive. And there's a real reframe here, because a lot of people out there, all they're looking to do is survive. Well, we don't want to do that. We actually want to thrive. So please, if you like it, and you learned anything during this video, just hit the like button. And more importantly though, subscribe, so that we can keep sending you these daily tips to make you stronger throughout this crisis.